Hello there, this is week 3 of my weekly history topic videos, and this week, for the week of January 13th to the 19th, I know it's the middle of the second week, but as I said before in a previous video that you might or might not have watched, since I start classes up, I'm starting to do these a little bit earlier than usual to get them out of the way. This week's topic video is the draft riots of 1863, the Civil War draft riots of 1863, most notably in New York, since that was the biggest one. Even though there were a lot of riots to the Civil War draft, the biggest one was in July of 1863 in New York, and I'm going to talk about that one. To understand the draft riots, you have to go back to March 1863. In March of 1863, Congress passed the Union Conscription Act for men of the ages between 20 and 45 to be enlisted into service into the Union Army. If you had enough cash, like if you were wealthy enough, you could pay a certain amount of money, and a substitute, most notably an immigrant, would go in your place. Like, say I'm 3940 and I'm extremely rich. If I don't want to be drafted, then I can easily pay off a substitute. I can go to a German immigrant or an Irish immigrant, pay off the substitute, and voila, I don't have to go. This is one of the main problems that starts the draft riots in New York City, mostly. In July of 1863, Irish and German immigrants, I know that if you've ever seen the movie Gangs of New York, I know that it mainly depicts only Irish immigrants doing it, but also German immigrants of the city did it as well. German and Irish immigrants banded together to resist the draft and destroy it. On July 11th, 1863, the first names were pulled out in New York City for the draft, but there was no resistance. A few days later, on July 13th, though, when the names were pulled out again, Irish and German immigrants banded together to destroy the draft. They marched together in protest. They burnt draft buildings in New York City. They were totally burnt. Upper-class New Yorkers and African Americans were attacked. Some were killed. You have African Americans in some cases being lynched. And it's just horrible. Mostly the immigrants, they see the upper class New Yorker and the African American as something not good for the Irish. They see it as exploiting the Irish, basically. First, with the upper-class New Yorkers, they exploit the Irish because they pay the minimum wages, and, they keep all the money. Also, they are not too kindly to African Americans either, because of Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation earlier in 1863, they kind of saw this as, okay, we're going to have to work harder now, because if slaves are free, that means we're going to have to work harder, and African Americans will go after jobs that we could have easily gotten before the Civil War. So this is one of the main reasons why they also attack African Americans, as well as the upper class of New Yorkers as well. And besides lynchings and upperclassmen being beaten up in burnt buildings. Um, the U.S. military actually, it gets so violent, the U.S. military has to be sent in to crush the mob. In fact, one of a very famous movie made, I think like a few years ago, I think in the 90s, called Gangs of New York. It gives a very accurate scene of the draft riots in 1863. In fact, during one point in the movie, one of the New York police officers, the head of it, who was in charge of a bunch of police officers, who was sent to crush the mob. Wait, no, not police officers. I'm sorry, soldiers. The head of the soldiers that were sent into the New York area to crush the mob. In Gangs of New York, he actually says, do not stop until you take the mob down, and he basically wants the mob crushed. So here you have angry immigrants versus U.S. troops who really should be down south at this time, defending territory, basically. The draft riot does not go good. Hundreds, if not thousands, are killed. Most of them are immigrants. And it's just a terrible scene altogether. That's basically it as far as the New York City draft riots. This will only come up in a course, like, if you're watching these videos for course reasons, it will come up maybe in a U.S. history course, like U.S. 1 or U.S. history to 1877. One course where it will probably be most useful is in a Civil War and Reconstruction course. I remember when I had a Civil War and Reconstruction course last semester, my professor went over the draft riots pretty much in depth. So that's, even though it's not down south, it's still very important to Civil War history, the New York City draft riots, because of the violence, and there are a lot of people who die from it, from the riots. So anyway, that's basically it for this week, and I will see you for week 4. Maybe I will post it the middle of next week. It depends. Like I said before in a previous video, I start classes next week, and I'm just going to have to see how week 4 will turn out. So that's basically it for this week, and goodbye.